Hello Internet, welcome to Moralis. On today's episode, we're going to be building a fully decentralized application that will help you view all your wallet NFTs and tokens in one dashboard. To do this, we're going to be using Moralis APIs and Scaffold ETH boilerplate to funnel all the information needed from the blockchain to the front end and push the application live. Of course, if you like videos like this, smash the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and without further ado, let's get started on building this app. To start, we're going to need a Moralis account. So head over to moralis.io and click the login button on the top right. Here, you'll be able to log in with a MetaMask account if you have one, or a Google account, as well as you could sign up with an email address of your choice. Once you have an account, you'll get access to the dashboard, where on the left side you'll have various other products that you can use to query the blockchain, like streams and nodes. But most importantly for us, we're going to need the API key. Remember, don't share this API key with anybody, because then people will have access to your Moralis account and could use up all your calls. Our free account gives us 40,000 calls. Okay, now we're ready to install Scaffold ETH. To do that, head over to scaffoldeth.io, and in the front page, you'll be greeted with two different ways to install this application. You can either use the GitHub command git clone and clone the full Scaffold ETH repository to a directory of your choice on your computer, and then npm install it that way. Or you could use an npx command right off the bat, npx create-eth at latest, and this will take you through a step-by-step process where you'll be asked to create the title of your application, choose the blockchain development environment of your choice, either Hardhat or Foundry. Of course, if you're a beginner, I recommend Hardhat because it's a battle-tested, old, more local blockchain environment that has a large following and a lot more videos and tutorials to learn it. Foundry is new, it's slightly better at testing actually it's a lot quicker at testing smart contracts, but the resources out there are minimal and you're going to have to be going through a lot of troubleshooting steps yourself. Keep in mind, when you git clone, you would have Hardhat as a default development environment. This will then install the application on your computer, and that could take some time depending on your internet connection and your computer speed. Of course, once it's done installing, you will then open up your development environment or terminals, shells, whatever you're comfortable with. And I have 3 terminals over here. As you can see, to stop, I'm running a local environment right now, but to stop it, you hit Control-C on all of them. And with these 3 terminals and you being in the directory of your application that you created with npx, you will then now be able to launch this application. Of course, if you don't have npm or yarn or git, I will attach a blog in the description below detailing all the steps that we will be discussing here, and I will provide links to articles that show you how to get a development environment running on Windows and the Mac. But once you're set up and you have your 3 terminals in front of you, I'm using Visual Studio Code. The first environment you want to run is that blockchain local development environment. Here you would use the command yarn chain. When launching your blockchain, local blockchain, you will have wallet addresses and private keys that you can save to your MetaMask so you could easily interact with your Dapp. So with Scaffold ETH, there's a built blockchain smart contract testing UI. And in the directories of the application, you have your contract.sol as well as your contract t.sol, which is the testing file. We're going to now launch and deploy this smart contract on our local environment with the second terminal. To do that, we will have to run the yarn deploy command. It's compiling the smart contract, and it has officially published the smart contract. As you can see here, we have a transaction hash on our terminal that's running the blockchain environment. And on the second terminal, we have the message that the on-chain execution completed successfully. Now with our third terminal, to launch the application, we're going to use the yarn start command. This will now launch the local host 3000, which is where our front UI of the Scaffold ETH application will be. And you could access that by going to localhost 3000. Of course, my application will look slightly different because I tweaked it, and I will go over all the changes I made to upgrade my app the way I want it to be a decentralized wallet viewing application. But as long as you have your Scaffold ETH application running, that means you're good to go, and we can go to the next steps. So to view our home page, you want to go to the page.tsx file within the Next.js application folder. This is going to be your main homepage file. Now, a couple changes I made to the default one that comes with the Scaffold ETH2 application. Initially, I added the next navigation use router function, as well as the use effect use state functions from React. I also changed up the magnifying glass symbol here and the adjustment horizontal icon here for the dashboard. Now, we're using the use router to push a new URL into the application, a new path into the application. So in our case, we're going to be using the dashboard. When somebody types in, localhost 3000, which is going to be your domain name, for example, .com something /dashboard. This is the router using that feature to do that in a Next.js application. We're also using the WAGME hooks from the connection of WAGME, the use account. This is built in with Scaffold to get the connected address. Here, if somebody wants to view their dashboard, we're going to link that address to the dashboard URL so that later on in the dashboard part of the app, we'll be able to use that address with the Moralis call to fetch the user's tokens and NFT collections. And of course, we're going to create a address look variable. This is going to be for the search bar below, so that if you want to search anybody's address like vitalik.eth, for example, you could put that there, and that will be pushed when we click the search button to the dashboard page so that that address's tokens and NFTs will be displayed. Now, a couple things to note here is I made changes to the header. Welcome to Tracboard, that is my application name. I utilized the address component in Scaffold ETH to display the connected address, which is the one that's going to be connected to the network. And that's going to be this testing burner address within Scaffold ETH, which comes pre-deployed with the application. Then here, I made the necessary changes to include router to push this dashboard and connected address if you click the view dashboard button, as well as to push the address look link to the address to the dashboard if you click the search bar. The input base, again, is a component that comes pre-installed with Scaffold ETH, and here it's able to make sure that the address format is correctly placed in here so that when you click that button, the onChange variable, when you type on the field, the onChange variable will be linked to the address look, which will then get pushed when you click the search button. So this is just a couple of changes that I made to the front page. I also made changes to the header and footer, which can be located within the components folder of the application folder. And here for the header, I simply just deleted some links that I didn't need. I only needed the home page and the debug for just to show you how you can debug smart contracts. That's an added feature in Scaffold. So if you could see, if I switch to my local network foundry and I go to the debug contracts page, here you'll be able to see that the contract that we deployed earlier is live and we could interact with it all within the Scaffold ETH. this is a way for you to build and test your smart contracts before deploying them to actual mainnet like Ethereum or Avalanche. Now, with that said, the header, I also made sure to add the logo, the site logo, in a mobile view, which is not present by default. And to do that, I just moved it outside of this previous is open state, set is drawer open clause. By setting it outside, I made sure that it's always going to be in the header. Other than that, the footer, I'm left mostly the same. The only thing is I changed the fork me link to include the GitHub repository that already has all of my updated code that I made. So, of course, you can make these changes manually, or you can take my GitHub repository and copy the files over from there onto your local development. If you would like to clone my my GitHub repository, just keep in mind I used Foundry's blockchain development environment, and that's what is used in my development kit. So if you're not using Foundry, it would be best just to manually copy those folders that the files that I just described into the proper folders on your application, and they will work just fine. Now with that set and done, we are now ready to tackle the creation of our dashboard and use Moralis to really give our application that nice shine, that the juicy crypto Web3 juice that it needs to stand out from the Web2 competition and just blow all other applications, like all other traditional web application in the dust. So let's get ready and create our dashboard address page. All right, we're almost ready to get Moralis installed into our application. But before we do that, I wanted to point out something that might be a little bit of a nuisance for beginners. So when you work with Scaffold ETH, it has something enabled called Git Lint verifications. If you're going to be pushing your commits to your GitHub repository, Lint will be ran every time, and you'll be getting an email result of your verification test. Now, to turn that off, you would need to go to the top of your directory in the .husky folder, pre-commit file, and uncomment yarn lint staged repos. Also, there will be a .github folder right above .husky, and you want to delete that entirely. This will now completely cancel lint verification, and you won't be getting those pesky emails, especially if you don't know what they are. Cool, right? We were able to create a full functional front-end system with the help of Scaffold ETH. Now, we're ready to extend that functionality further and include Moralis APIs to query the blockchain and get that necessary data to show our beautiful NFT collections and our tokens that we've been holding since the bear market of 2013. I don't know if you remember any of those tokens, but that's been a long time. Bitcoin is going to the moon, and we're going to go there with it. To do that, we need to use the power of Dapp development, and nothing is better than utilizing Moralis to push that forward. So without further ado, let's show you its powers, and you guys will love it. Let's go. Now, we're ready to install Moralis. So, to install Moralis on your default Scaffold ETH application, you would want to open up a fourth terminal. Make sure to go into the application directory. In my case, it's in Tracboard. And you would want to run either one of these commands. If you do not have yarn installed and you're using npm, you would write npm install Moralis. This would add the Moralis library to your package.json file, and you will now be able to use the Moralis functions to initiate the Moralis API server connection. Of course, if you want to use yarn, the command is yarn add Moralis. This would do exactly the same thing. It will add the Moralis library to your package.json file, and you'll be able to use Moralis within your application. Awesome. So now we're getting to the end. We're getting to the really fun stuff. We're gonna built this dashboard page for our application and push the Moralis API connection functions in there so that we can pull all the data from the blockchain regarding the user's tokens and NFT collections. So let's get ready and do exactly that. We want to create a new folder inside our Next.js application, and we're going to call it dashboard. So inside dashboard, we're going to also attach another folder with square brackets around it, and we're going to call it address. Now this is what's called dynamic routing inside Next.js, and it will allow us to store information on this part of the URL. So in this case, it'll be site name / dashboard / the wallet address that we'll have on the URL, and that is going to be stored within this address variable. So, and of course, within this folder, we're going to have a page.tsx, which is kind of like your main page file for the component, which is going to be called dashboard. Inside this page.tsx, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to import the useEffect and useState functions from React. We're going to import Moralis from Moralis, and we're also going to import useAccount for WAGMI. Now, useAccount is going to be important to kind of attach those key address and chain ID variables for Moralis to be able to fetch the data for us and give us the response of the user's token balances and NFTs. So to get started, we want to first create this export component dashboard. And like I said before, to get access to this dynamic routing variable, you need to input params inside this component's parameters. And now you'll be able to get this address hook variable by calling the params $.address. When you call this, it's able to extract the part of the URL that will have the address after the dashboard and attach it to the address hook. We will then be able to provide this to the Moralis API so that we can, for example, when somebody is using the search button to input any address, that's what's going to be pushed into the API to fetch data for. Now, of course, if you want to display your own things, we have the useAccount function from WAGMI that's included with Scaffold to be able to get your chain ID, your chain name, and your connected address. And here we're storing both the chain ID and the chain name inside variables so that we could use it within this page.tsx file. These variables we're going to be creating so that we could store the response results from the API call. So balances is going to store all our tokens, and balances NFTs will store all our NFTs. And of course, current tab and set current tab is going to be what's going to be able to juggle either if you're viewing all your tokens or your NFT collection. So here you have how we're going to be creating the Moralis instance. So as you can see, you don't want to create multiple Moralis instances, and that's what we have here. We will only create the Moralis start instance, if the windows.moralis started object does not exist. Once it exists, which is once the instance is created, this will not run again. This is so that you don't have a lot of connections to Moralis for no reason with your API key. Of course, as we can see here, the process.env function is a native Next.js function that pulls that API key so it's not visible to the front end from your environment variable and lets Moralis know that, hey, this is the person that's connecting. He needs to fetch data from the blockchain. Now, to do the actual fetching of the data, we will create a fetch balances function. It's an asynchronous function, and it will use the effect of the React state variable to send and await result of the Moralis API response. So we're going to make sure to get the chain ID, and that's going to be pulled from the WAGMI useAccount function. Once we have the chain ID, we're able to interact with Moralis API functions. So you can see a full documentation of Moralis functions on their docs website, moralis.io. It's very user-friendly. we're using the wallet API. So here you could see all the functions that you could use, as well as when you go to their explanation, they have multiple different environments where you can use their calls to get the data that you need for your application. So here we're going to be using, of course, not the get wallet history, but we're going to be using the get wallets NFTs and get wallets token balance prices. Going back to our application, as you can see, we have those functions written out here. We have the needed parameters, which is the chain ID and the address, as well as for the NFTs, we have the decimal and the media items true, because we want to get those beautiful pictures that we all cherish and paid thousands of Ethereum for. So once we get that response, we're storing it in those two variables, as I mentioned before, the balances and the balances NFTs. From here, we're now going to be able to display that data on our front end. So to do that, we're going to go into the return part of the script. And here, as you can see, initially, I just updated the header part, which is the Moralis powered dashboard with the wallet address. Now the chain ID is Foundry. That's why Moralis is not pulling anything. This is where the chain ID comes from your Wallet Connect. So we're going to quickly switch networks to Ethereum. As you can see, it's all interactive. And we are now pulling all our tokens very quickly with Moralis. And of course, if we view NFTs, they're already there. They're already downloaded in our application. So we're displaying this here by using those buttons to set the current tab to either tokens or NFTs. So you could either display one or the other. That's what these buttons do. And then once you have that, if the balances response came back correctly and the tab is tokens, we will create a table with the headers. And then for each of these token results, that's going to be an array. So we're making sure that the balances is an array of each token. And we're mapping it to a specific variable called balance so that we could then get the balance logo, which is the ETH logo, the balance symbol, which is the ETH name, the balance name, the balance USD price, the 24-hour change, and so on to populate it for each token that we have listed on our wallet for the chain ID specified. Similarly with NFTs, we're doing exactly the same thing. We're making sure that the variable that we got from the response is an array and that the current tab is selected for NFTs. From here, we're now just displaying div tags in a card style where you will see your NFT image, the name, description, contract type, token ID, and token address if you want to add that to your MetaMask, for example. And to get that, we're going to be using a similar map where we're mapping each variable to balance, and we are then in a loop displaying all our NFT collections by name, description, contract type, token ID by using the balance _ data, contract type, and token ID respectively. All these variables can be found on the response of the Moralis documentation. So you can see these are all the response results for that specific call, which is NFTs by wallet. Cool. So now we are able to pull all our NFTs. The last thing that I want to bring up is basically we will now be able to switch networks, or rather, how will we be able to switch networks to take advantage of all these different chains that Moralis has their API connections with. So to do that, first you want to make sure to go to Moralis and make sure that under supported chains, you only add these chains. Otherwise, Moralis will not be compatible and you will just not get a result, a response rather, when you push a request. And once you have that list, you would then go to the Scaffold config file. And in the Scaffold config file, which is going to be available in the Next.js folder, you will have this target networks array. And target networks array will basically include all the chains that you want. So if you want to add another chain, you would hit chain dot and then the name. Of course, to get the names, I would console log this variable, and that will show you all the names so that you could get their naming conventions right. I know some of them off the top of my head, but of course some of them could just be called, like Arbitrum could be arb, and if you call it Arbitrum it might not work, but if you call it arb it will. But once you have the networks selected here, your application will easily be able to access them through switch networks, and you could switch around. As you can see now, we're going to pull NFTs from Avalanche rather than, surprisingly they're very similar. I guess, let's see, let's try refreshing that. Maybe it needs a little refresh. Yeah, there's yeah. So after there was no NFTs for this wallet. This is a burner wallet, so it makes sense. Avalanche is a local network, but on Ethereum, people did send it. So yeah, there we go. It dynamically populated when it receives a call. So when it does receive a response, it populates, and that's the if statement here. So because Avalanche didn't have any NFTs, it didn't populate anything. But yeah, so now you have a multi-chain, fully accessible dashboard portfolio viewer built by you. I'm very proud of you guys, and I know you guys want to probably show it off to the world. You know, show it to your mom, show it to your friends in school. So to do that, Scaffold ETH also has exactly what you need. So Scaffold ETH, if you go to their documentations, they have a deploy shipping your Dapp section. Now, of course, you could deploy your smart contract. If you know what you're doing, you tested it, you pushed it live on testnet, you audited it, you could always now deploy it onto mainnet with these commands. This will now have your application live, and you could interact with your contract creation. If we did not focus on doing this, but you have that with Scaffold. But for us, we could deploy our Next.js application front end with Moralis, and people can use our application all over the world to view anybody's wallet collection, NFT collection, and tokens, as well as view their own when they log in. To do that, Scaffold ETH partnered with Vercel.com, and it's a couple lines of code. This will initiate the process of you using Vercel to host your Next.js application. Keep in mind, you'll also have to do a similar .env local file upload so that your API keys and other private keys that you'll be using will not be shown on the front end of your application, and rather be hidden in the back end, in this case, Vercel servers. Now, of course, Vercel is a free tool, but if you do become popular, you will have to eventually pay them. And then of course, if you want to have a domain for your app rather than vercel.com/project ID, you can look at their documentations on exactly how to integrate all of that, and they make it very easy within their dashboard. I highly recommend them. Wow, that was a mission accomplished. We were able to use Scaffold ETH2 and Moralis to build a fully decentralized app, and one that's capable to be pushed live via Vercel.com. I know this must be a challenging time for some of you, and this is why I wrote a Medium article displaying all the steps we've used in the video with screenshot examples and code templates. I'll attach that link in the description below, as well as various other links and guides that will be useful, and ones that were mentioned in the blog post and in the video. Of course, if you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to leave them down in the comment section below. I'll try my best to answer each and one of them and help you guys as much as I can. If you've liked this video, please hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you could be notified whenever I create another great Dapp. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.